Let's take a look now at the newspapers. We're joined by Sally Scott, a partner at Hall and Wilcox Lawyers. So great to see you. Thanks so much for coming in. Now, the front page of the Herald Sun has caught your eye. Ban the beggars is the headline screaming at us.
No doubt, not surprising from the Herald Sun that we'd see a heading like this. I, probably like many people, were a little concerned when I saw the heading as to what sort of angle they would take. And it's actually not as bad as you would think. This story is about an initiative by the Lord Mayor in Melbourne, Robert Doyle, who is looking at how they can, in effect, help those who beg. And it has support from the Salvation Army, and the proposal is that they will actually charge those who are begging, and that they will bring them into court and look at what they can do, and they'll put them on what they call it's an initiative where they can't find the name of it, but what they're suggesting is that they will look at, put them through various checks. They'll go through health checks, they will have meetings with the Salvation Army, and these are all compulsory under the scheme, so that the intention is that they'll try and help these people.
Because the suggestion, of course, is that a large number of these people actually do have underlying issues like drug problems and stuff, so perhaps try and get them in the network somehow to give them some help.
That's right, and the issue is, well, will this help? I have some concern about the criminal aspect and actually charging them, whether or not that's appropriate, whether or not it will do more harm than good, for example, to their self-esteem, when, as you say, people have health issues, mental health issues, drug and alcohol issues. So whether or not it's going to help, but as Robert Doyle said, something's got to be tried, and I think that's right. They've got to try something.
Now, the new look, and it is a new look, Financial Review this morning, it's had a bit of a redesign. It looks at grocery prices as part of its coverage.
That's right. This is a really interesting article. They've got an article on the front page and on page 8, and then there's a full double-page spread on pages 22 and 23. This is concerning Rod Sims, the chairman of the ACCC, which is one of the two main regulators or corporate watchdogs in Australia. And what this story is all about is the supermarkets and the power of the big two, Woolworths and Coles. And the double-page spread on pages 22 and 23 really look at his time in office, which is since 2011, and it looks at what his focus has been, which is the supermarkets. The previous chairman looked at cartels, and the one before that, Alan Fells, looked at the petrol industry. So Rod Sims' focus is on supermarkets, and in particular what this article is talking about is, or one of the things they're talking about, is the fact that if he does pursue the two main players, Woolworths and Coles, prices may increase in the short term. And people often think, well, we've got $1 milk prices and great competition between these two. People are often in favour of these, but what they forget is the fact that if the big two drive down prices, one of the effects can be that they're driving out competitors, which could leave these two main players in the market alone, or have a substantial presence in the market, even more than they have now, and prices could increase by reason of that. So yes, people are very attracted to these dollar prices, but just be wary that they might increase.
Coles would love to get status quo to write a new song. Prices are up. Now, the Australian's also looking at watchdogs this morning.
Yes, and this is the CMC in Queensland, which is the Crime and Misconduct Commission. Unfortunately, unlike the Misconduct Commissions or the commissions in Victoria and New South Wales, they don't have a catchy title like IBAC or ICAC, but the CMC is, we saw a bit of this in the press at the end of last week, which was the Queensland Premier called for the resignation, or at least invited the former head to resign. He was the head last week. He's since resigned, but he says for health reasons. So he says it has nothing to do with the Premier calling on him to resign. But one of the interesting issues is this issue of how much interference should politicians have in commissions, particularly commissions about corruption within politics. So that's an interesting issue. The editorial in The Australian says watchdogs must be accountable, and yes, they should be accountable, but perhaps not to the Premier.
Yeah. Now let's go to The Age, and of course we saw those dramatic developments last week. Denis Napthine now installed as the new Victorian Premier, and The Age writing about him having to face the Gillard legitimacy test. What is that?
Look, this is a really interesting article. We've seen the papers, particularly in Victoria, have been flooded by this issue over the last week. This is a really new angle that I hadn't seen reported on before, and that is in relation to sort of the female angle. Gillard has been very heavily criticised, and it's not leaving her the way that she stepped in place of Rudd. And whenever you look at the polls, there's often criticism about the way she came into power.
Yeah.
And what this editorial does is it looks at, well, or the opinion piece, it looks at, well, last week we saw Bailey leave, the Victorian Premier at the time. Denis Napthine has come in, and she's putting the proposition, well, is he going to face a similar criticism as Gillard has? So she's brought in this female aspect, which is an interesting issue. I'm not sure that it's warranted, but it's an interesting issue to think about, and certainly females are held to a different standard, and there are a lot of criticism of females, particularly leaders.
Because they destroyed the joint, obviously.
That's a bit harsh, Mike.
Although so many people have pointed out that they are not really that similar. Take that smirk off your
Yes,
face.
yes. I am joking, by the
Yes,
way.
yeah, please do not.
Speaking of joking, let's finish with a Bill Lee cartoon.
And actually a related cartoon, if I can get that up on the screen. There we go, poor old Gillard. I do suspect her days may be numbered.
Yes, that is not the most comfortable cartoon. Pretty vicious. It's quite a vicious.
And of course that's taking up on the West Australian.
Here we go to the left-hand side. It was just too hard with this albatross hanging around our mate. Tell me about it.
Slightly tighter on the federal Labor. Sally, thanks. Good to see you. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
coming in.
Thank you.
Let's go to sport now, and it's good morning to Paul.